Good morning, fathers of daughters. This is Efren B. Martin. Welcome to another Girl Dad YouTube channel live stream. All fathers are welcome, regardless of your ethnic group, background, or culture. Welcome all fathers. Today is Sunday, May the 26th. We're almost in June, fathers. So I'm in the state of Colorado. Weather's getting nice. We're in the spring. We've been getting a lot of rain, and it's good. Springtime in Colorado is good. Okay, fathers, we're here today to have a discussion. Fathers of daughters, our daughters and juvenile detention centers. So some of you fathers might be wondering, why am I talking about juvenile detention centers? Well, let me tell you. I'm a former state of Colorado juvenile probation officer. I worked in the criminal justice system for 20 years, and I'm also a certified paralegal since 1984. And the reason that it's relevant and prevalent for us to discuss juvenile detention centers, because some of your daughters will end up there. And I just believe in sharing information with fathers, schooling them as best as I can to let them know the possibilities of what could happen to their daughters in the criminal justice system, whether they're on diversion or probation or some other form of juvenile supervision. So I believe that the having a discussion about juvenile detention centers is definitely something most fathers, although you may never encounter it, you may know someone whose children, whose daughters are going through the criminal justice system, and it's just not, it's not a good time when you have a daughter that's in the criminal justice system, right? Juvenile detention centers, what about them? Well, there's a lot of things about juvenile detention centers that fathers need to be aware of. A lot of things can happen to daughters in juvenile detention centers. For instance, they could be assaulted, they could be sexually assaulted, they end up getting into fights, they end up withdrawing, they end up just having a lot of different issues while they're in the juvenile detention centers. How do most kids end up in juvenile detention centers? Most kids end up in juvenile detention centers, from my experience as a probation officer, state juvenile probation officer, was because the little girls run away from home. And when little girls run away from home, their parents file what's called a run report with local law enforcement, depending on where they live. I was a state juvenile probation officer with the First Judicial District in Jefferson County, Colorado, from 1994 to about 2001. And I saw my share of young girls running away that I got on probation. Matter of fact, 90% of the girls, 95% of the little girls that I got on probation, they were runaway little girls. So they ended up being picked up at juvenile detention centers. So little girls run away for a number of reasons. What I would tell you, fathers, is if your daughters decide to run away from home, it is because they're in a very, very dark place. And what I mean by being in a very, very dark place, my experience has taught me, when little girls decide that they're going to leave their parents, they feel that it is safer for them to be away from home than to actually be at home. And you got to think about that, fathers. That's crazy. So for me, being a probation officer, what that meant to me was there was a total disconnect, or a disconnect, with the parents. And I can count on one hand, how many fathers I met while I was a juvenile probation officer supervising their daughters. I can count on one hand how many fathers I met. Fathers don't come to court. Fathers, a lot of fathers, not all, but a lot of fathers, they really don't engage with the criminal justice system if they've never been a part of it. It's very difficult for a lot of fathers to, at least my experience, it was difficult for a lot of fathers to invest in the supervision of their daughters. And they just typically, a lot of fathers just fall back and they're very non-supportive when it comes to their daughters being involved in the criminal justice system, because a lot of fathers don't feel that they can do anything wrong, and they don't understand how their daughters ended up in the criminal justice system. So fathers, this is why I'm here. I'm here to explain some things to you from a professional perspective, going a lot deeper than what you're probably accustomed to, and giving you the real deal, because that's how I get down. And this is what I do to help fathers. This is my way of giving back to fathers because I care. And I just want fathers to be informed. Grow That YouTube channel is all about educational and informational instruction through resources. Okay, I'm one of many resources on YouTube. And I believe my book, Daddy's Girls, as you can see, it's in the right-hand corner, left-hand corner of my my live stream. It's called Daddy's Girls. And I believe that I have the blueprint to help fathers understand our sense of urgency that we need to build long-term sustainable relationships with our baby girls. So I have about 7 good videos today that I want to share with fathers. And fathers, I'm just asking you to keep open mind about the videos that you're going to be seeing and that you will be processing. Because the criminal justice system, the juvenile justice system, is not easy. It is difficult for a lot of fathers to maneuver. It's difficult for families to maneuver. The one thing you need to understand, fathers, if your daughter ends up in the juvenile justice system, if they end up on probation, I've said this in several videos, the entire family is on probation. And the reason the entire family is on probation is because you have to invest. You're going to be responsible for taking them to and from appointments. You're going to be responsible for paying their court fees. You're going to be responsible for paying their anger management fees, their drug and alcohol fees. You're going to be responsible. So economically, it's a hit on the family. It's a big hit, because the fees of juvenile court, they can be extensive depending on how your child ended up in juvenile court. Most of the young girls that I supervised came from family court and ended up getting cases in juvenile court because of issues within the family between their mothers and fathers. All right, fathers? So, like I said, got some great videos today that I'm going to share with you. And feel free, fathers, to comment, subscribe, like, share, and just have an open mind, fathers, because this is not something that a lot of professionals that you see on the internet are explaining to fathers of daughters. As I do my research and I'm coming across videos on YouTube to supplement what I'm going to be presenting every week to fathers, I don't see many YouTube channels. I don't see any, actually, that go as deep as I go, because I've been through every stage of development with my 4 adult daughters. And fathers, a lot of times, just need to know why. They need to know the explanation of things, of how the juvenile justice system works and the criminal justice system, how it works, okay, and why it's relevant. So that's what I do, is I go as deep as I need to go. And if you feel that my YouTube channel is relevant and it can help you, feel free to comment, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and feel free to follow. Because for me, it's all about the fathers and the father-daughter relationship. Okay, fathers, so let's check out this first video. Okay, let me see. I'm getting it together, fathers. Technology. Let's see. That one. No. There we go. Okay, fathers, here's the first video.
You're listening to WITF's Morning Edition. I'm Tim Lambert with Katie Meyer.
Good morning, Tim.
The reason Katie is joining me today is to help kick off the latest WITF Real Life, Real Issue series. This one is focusing on Cumberland County's juvenile justice system, which, for those that don't know, deals with children between the ages of 10 and 18 who commit a crime. WITF was provided with unique access to take an inside look at the system. Last year, 169 dispositions of juveniles took place in the county. That's the lowest number by far since 2009.
The juvenile system in Pennsylvania is often misunderstood, mainly because it operates behind closed doors due to the confidentiality involved to protect the identity of the child. Like any courtroom proceeding in the state, there are no cameras or audio recordings allowed. So for the last 7 months, Tim has been sitting in on hearings in the county, talking to the many people and agencies involved in such cases, and even following one offender through the system.
That's right, Katie. It was a fascinating look at just how different the juvenile justice system is from the criminal system for adults, from how cases are handled to the different lingo used.
We don't convict, we adjudicate, we find people in need of treatment, and we have disposition, finding of fact hearings instead of trials.
That's Cumberland County District Attorney David Freed. So to try to illustrate just how different it is, Katie and I will walk you through just what exactly happens from when an offender is cited to the closing of the case. It's the first of 4 stories we'll bring you this week.
When a juvenile is suspected of a crime, he or she is issued a written allegation filed by police, in most cases known as a referral. It's sent to the Cumberland County Juvenile Probation Department.
Sam Miller, can I help you? We might get the initial call the night of the arrest from the police requesting detention, and we receive the report immediately. And so we're involved from the onset.
Sam Miller has been the county chief probation officer for the last 14 years.
I believe that of all the pieces in the system, none are more important than the juvenile probation officer because they see them on a weekly basis, sometimes multiple times a week. They'll be involved in counseling sessions as well as drug testing. It could be checking to see if they're attending school regularly.
One of the county juvenile probation officers in Miller's office is Frank Schartle. He says an assessment is conducted on each offender at what is known as the intake level. Technically, it's called a YLS assessment.
We use that scale to measure what is the likeliness of them reoffending in the community. It also specifies particular areas that we should focus on, such as personality and behavior, education and employment.
When a case is filed with the court, it goes to the DA's office. Freed, who's held the office for a dozen years, personally approves all referrals and makes an initial recommendation on how to proceed. When he recommends the case for court, a juvenile petition is created, and the DA's office presents the case in court to the judge.
We have a role to play as the representative of the public, and to the extent that we need to have finding of fact hearings, we prosecute the cases.
He says it can go one of 4 ways, including an immediate dismissal.
We can choose to divert the case in a couple of different ways, or I can say I want us to seek an adjudication on a particular charge or the charges, and then that would set the case up to come in front of the judge where we would have a finding of fact hearing.
Freed notes the majority of cases involve children who have never been in trouble.
Our fondest hope is if we have a juvenile who gets in trouble that we can positively impact that juvenile's system and make sure they don't come back. That's true success.
On the other side of each case is making sure every juvenile offender has counsel. Tim, you remember one of the worst judicial scandals in U.S. history, Kids for Cash in Luzerne County.
He and another judge are accused of taking millions from the builder and owner of a private juvenile jail.
But what's important to note is many of the juveniles involved were not represented by counsel or advised of their rights. So changes were made, and that's no longer the case in Pennsylvania. Under state law, every juvenile between 10 and 18 charged with a criminal offense has a right to free counsel. Now, if a family doesn't hire an attorney, this guy steps in.
Ron Toro, Cumberland County Juvenile Defender. I am the advocate and attorney for the child.
He notes it's a limited jurisdiction court to try to give children an opportunity to go through the system, try to deal with any underlying issues that led to a criminal offense, and come out of it without a criminal record.
In our world, if a juvenile is found to have committed offense, it's called an adjudication of delinquency, and they can be placed on probation or even placed out of home if necessary.
Children have the same rights, like the right to remain silent and the right to be tried in front of a judge. The Commonwealth must also prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. Turo says the system focuses on trying to make sure these kids get the services they need, come out of it better than they entered it, and down the road not commit any other offenses as juveniles or adults.
We've taken more of a pro-community and a pro-victim approach in the last several years, and that's been very good, and it should be, because children need to understand the consequences, that it's not just, okay, you did something bad and we're going to focus on you.
If it does end up being tried, there are no juries involved, just a judge.
I am Tom Placey. I'm a common pleas judge here in Cumberland County.
Placey says he often has to determine if there's probable cause that the juvenile committed an act of delinquency. If he finds a child committed a criminal offense, he must then determine if the offender is in need of treatment, supervision, and rehabilitation. Only then can he adjudicate them delinquent and impose a disposition like probation.
And then if I determine that, then we go to determine whether juvenile needs to be in a placement, a detention, a secure facility, or whether there's a way we can safely put him back into a home environment. After that probable cause determination is made, we go to what's known as a finding of fact hearing. I have to make a determination beyond a reasonable doubt whether that juvenile committed the delinquent acts charged.
Placey also takes recommendations from a number of people involved in a particular case, like the juvenile's counselor or probation officer.
These are the cases that cause me to lose sleep Sunday night when I'm thinking how I'm going to decide certain things. I don't want to throw any child away. There's hope for every child.
Once a judge rules a juvenile committed an offense after an adjudicatory hearing or finding of fact, the path could lead to a number of things: probation, community service and fees and restitution, or placement at a facility such as rehab. Now that you've had a chance to learn about how the juvenile justice system works, over the next 3 days, you'll hear about one offender as she makes her way through the system.
That's right, Katie. I followed 18-year-old Brandy Kiefer for the last 6 months, from her adjudication of delinquency hearing to finding out if she successfully completed the terms of her probation. The first part of her story, how she ended up in juvenile court, will air tomorrow on WITF's Morning Edition.
Support for Real Life, Real Issues Juvenile Justice comes from the Cumberland County Bar Foundation.
Okay, fathers, what are your thoughts? First video, excellent video, fathers. And that explains the juvenile justice system process. The one thing they didn't discuss was what's called juvenile diversion. It's a lower form of juvenile supervision, which would happen at the county level, not the state level, where juveniles are processed for lower level offenses, petty offense 1, 2, or 3 classifications, theft, no violent offenses, but more majority property crimes, no breaking and entering, but most of the crimes are theft. And some of these kids are placed on juvenile diversion when they're not attending school. So it's juvenile diversion is a good program for a lot of children, first-time offenders, and you see a lot of success with juvenile diversion. As you can see, the juvenile justice system, all court hearings go before a juvenile judge or a magistrate. I worked in a county where we had magistrates and judges sit on the bench, and the difference between a magistrate and a judge is a magistrate is appointed by a judge who works under a judge, and judges are elected. So those are the major differences between a magistrate and a judge in the state of Colorado. All states are going to be different. Their jurisdictions are going to be different in how they operate. After watching this particular video when I was doing research on it, this is definitely a smaller county in which this information came from and the documentation came from, because the county I was in Jefferson County, Colorado, 1st Judicial District, Jefferson County. At the time in 1984, when I was hired, we had 85 probation officers. 25 of them were juvenile probation officers, and the rest were adult probation officers. So as you could see, more than 50% of the probation officers in Jefferson County when I was a probation officer were for adults, and about 30% were for juveniles. So it was, I had a great experience as a probation officer, learned a lot. I actually had applied to law school. I had got accepted to law school, and I ended up not going because my daughters were little and just my priorities had changed. So never went to law school, but did get accepted. And had I gone to law school, I was going to become a defense attorney. So I already had my mind set on what I was going to do. I wasn't interested in prosecuting kids. I would have been interested in defending them, though. So that was the first video, a very good video, and just an overview of the juvenile justice system. And fathers, always feel free to do your own research. I'm an educational and informational provider through instruction. So everything that is I provide as far as visualization of videos, they are in the description of each one of my live streams. Feel free to click on them and watch them, and also feel free to do your own research. If you go back, this is I believe this is my 43rd live stream. If you go back to my live streams when I first started back in July to October of 2023, the first 19 live streams, they were all research based. And I also use videos, but the majority of them were research based using data and statistics. So my first 19 videos, a lot of research. So feel free to look at those first 19 as well. Feel free to look at all my live streams. They're great live streams. Okay, fathers. So I'm going to get this second video set up, fathers.
Is 14.
Okay, fathers, this next video is why do juveniles commit crimes? It's about 2 years old, and gives you a little bit of perspective on why some juveniles may commit crimes, okay?
Stolen cars and gun crimes, violence that has been on the rise across the nation and even here in the Columbus metro in recent months.
And those behind the acts are often teenagers, some as young as 14, who find themselves in and out of the juvenile justice system. Because of their age and legal rights, we don't often hear from them until now.
Yeah, tonight we pause to listen, not to glamorize their crime or to take advantage of them, but to understand the why. Why they and other teens like them do it, the challenges the courts face when sentencing them, and what could lead to a turning point, making our neighborhoods safer.
Because it was one time I feel like I didn't have a purpose.
Patrick Chandler and Gabriel Matthew found themselves behind bars before their 18th birthday.
When I was 14, I really started going downhill.
Gabe says peer pressure played a major role in shifting him off track.
Was that a fear that you could end up dead one day?
Yes, sir. From people I was hanging out with, some people I was hanging out with, they were in gangs.
A night out with a group of guys 2 years ago ended with a 2 a.m. traffic stop and a discovery by officers that thrusted Matthew into the juvenile justice system. A stolen gun in the car that Matthew claims he had nothing to do with.
You can't just tell a police officer that someone left a gun in a car, because they're not going to believe that.
A judge found him guilty on concealed weapon and receiving stolen property charges and sentenced him to a year probation.
I had a lot going on for myself. Like I had a lot of positive things going on for myself.
Much like Gabe, life early on for Patrick Chandler seemed good. He had a family who encouraged him, sparking a flame that would be smothered by grief from the death of loved ones, anger, and negative peer pressure. Patrick went from a standout to a dropout. Loyalty to his best friend became his top priority.
I feel like if I would have kept trying to be a positive person to him, he'd have still been here and we'd have been living a better life and making better decisions.
One bad decision in November of 2020 would shake Chandler to his core.
I couldn't sleep. Man, it was time. I told the police to kill me because I didn't even want to live no more without him.
Patrick watched his best friend die from a gunshot wound. The bullet, he says, was fired as his friend played with the weapon. However, weeks later, police charged Chandler with reckless homicide and a gun specification charge. Charges he pled not guilty to.
Everybody that's doing this right now, they know right from wrong. They know what they should and shouldn't be doing.
Gabe says many of the teens stealing cars, committing murders, and other violent offenses could be seeking a thrill or validation with little concern of consequences.
There's regulations and there are rules that we as judges have to comply with, and kids have their rights too. They have rights just like the adults do.
Franklin County Juvenile Judge Monica Hawkins says the criminal issues with our teens were fueled by the COVID-19 pandemic. She says they were cut off from social connections and services that help steady them. She says the median age for those appearing in her courtroom now is 14 years old, with many who reoffend back a few months later.
The kids that come here are dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. They're dealing with benign neglect. They usually are on our A&D docket, or abuse, neglect, and dependency. Usually come from homes with less income, less stable homes.
Rules and laws are different for juveniles than adults, especially how they're released after being charged.
It's a bunch of factors and stuff that we consider that, but we as judges are not just letting people out.
Juveniles can't pay their way out with a bond. Their freedom hinges on laws and a screening system the judges are required to follow.
It considers their past history, any past crimes, any violent crimes. It tries to take all of that, and it has a scoring system. And that's pretty determinative of who gets to release and who gets to stay.
While the courts have been criticized for this practice, several research studies support it. According to the Juvenile Law Center, research confirms that locking children up for long periods of time causes more harm than good and does little to protect our communities. As for Patrick and Gabe, Patrick joined the Army as a human resource specialist.
I ended up joining the Army to do positive things, you feel me, so I can actually build a career. Because it wasn't nothing in the streets.
While Gabe is finishing high school and maintaining a job he loves.
I got a second chance. I knew I didn't want to keep doing the same thing I was doing before and be the same person I was before and end up in jail, actually, or end up dead. Because I know, like, I want better for myself.
Both young men tell me they hope their stories of redemption will inspire other teens to do what's right. Right now, Gabe is working to get his record expunged. The charges against Patrick are still pending as he awaits a trial date.
Okay, fathers, what are your thoughts about that? Another excellent video. So I became a juvenile probation officer because I wanted to help children and advocate for kids. I believe I was a great advocate for all children, right? And one of the things is you notice in this video, you see how the young man that got into trouble, he's in the Army now. And the other young man is getting it together and trying to expunge his record. And the reason he needs to expunge, the white young man needs to expunge his juvenile record because he was in a vehicle with a weapon, a gun. And more than likely, he was charged with a F3, felony 3, menacing. Anytime juveniles are caught with weapons in vehicles, specifically a gun, they're going to be charged with menacing. It's a felony offense in the state of Colorado, and it's a felony offense in every other state. So they will be charged with felony menacing. And the reason I believe in young people can change. I know a lot of adults don't like children. I know a lot of adults are bothered by children. And I love working with children. Children are way easier to work with adults. I never had a desire to work with adults because for me, adults, there's always some levels of games and nonsense you got to play with adults and just levels of foolishness that you got to deal with adults. And at least with children, there's hope, and all children can change. This is a prime example of younger children, young men. They're changing their lives for the better. But the great thing about the juvenile justice system, as long as you're not filed on as a direct file on a juvenile in the state of Colorado means you're being charged as an adult. So, for instance, say a child murdered another child or one of their parents or another adult, and the state of Colorado does a direct file by the district attorney's office, that child is going to be charged as an adult in adult court. It's called a direct file in the state of Colorado, which means that if they're in the detention center, once that direct file happens, they are removed from the juvenile detention center and placed in the adult jail. I'm sorry, the adult jail in the juvenile wing. Every jail has a juvenile wing in every state. Juveniles are separated from adults. They're never put, the child under 18 is never put in the same cell as an adult. That's constitutionally a problem, and it just doesn't happen. So there's safeguards for children, even if they're being charged as adults. They're separated from the adult population in which they should be. So very interesting as a group video. And like I said, juveniles to me, I remember when I was in college, when I did my internships, I interned as a junior and senior, in my junior and senior year in college, 1992 and 1993. 91 through 93 is when I did my internships. My first year, I internshiped at adult corrections, and I also did adult transition with adults. And I just didn't, I knew it wasn't me, because these adult men, they're just, most of them were career criminals, and all they ever try to do is get over. And I was just, I was a little bit older. I was 25 when I was doing these internships, 25 and 26. I graduated college when I was 27 because I went in the Marine Corps first. And just they're gamers, and this is what they've done their whole life. That's their hustle, is to game and get over. And then my senior years, when I got to do juvenile detention centers, and I knew that working with kids was better for me, because kids listen, even though they're difficult, even though they have their ups and downs. Kids are safer, and they change. They just need the right adult to come in their life. They need right adults to come in their life, because so many of these kids have been failed by adults. So as you can see, judges have a lot on their plates. Magistrates have a lot on their plates when it comes to these children and the sentencing guidelines in which they have to deal and give the appropriate sentence for these children. Okay. So next video, fathers of daughters. Okay, fathers of daughters, this next video is teens in lockup, girls versus boys in prison.
He has been a lot of problems since he came to the facility. He has been changed to different units. Before he came down to B, then he was transferred to the control unit. Before he came up to the control unit, he stayed in our padded cell for a while. He's tried to destroy state property. He has over restitution to the state for destruction of state property. I mean, he's really been a handful. He's just started coming down these past few weeks. In a day, because he didn't get a radio, because we just did the new radio system where the upper levels are getting radios. And he tore a book up a few days ago, and he tore a school book up, and now destruction of state property. So I told him that he would not more likely get his next level, which is a level 2, where he could get the radio, and he got upset. And that's when I tried to de-escalate the situation by telling him we can do a week-to-week evaluation of his behavior. And if he has a consistent positive behavior, then we can probably do a level change and give him his level. He was past that point. Then he was already had geared himself up. He was already hyped up, ready to go. So I couldn't calm him down. He was already set in his mode. And I think because the camera crews was here, and then some of the officers he has problems with were here. So it doesn't help that his peers seem to join in and hype him up a little bit more. So he really got into himself and just refused, and he already shut down. So any communications I was giving him, he's already had shut down on me.
So do you know, as an officer, when you've gotten to that point? Can you tell when there's just no turning back and there's
Usually, when I try to talk to him, and if he came to the door a few times, is getting ready to give me the broom up, and then his peers start talking, or he started thinking about it, and he just refused. He was just adamant. At that point, I know he wasn't going to give it up.
Tell me about the peer pressure.
Oh, that's constant. I mean, you have kids.
Start by saying peer pressure. That's constant.
The peer pressure, that's constant. That is real constant with these offenders. I mean, you have kids that will start off by telling them, just bring up a situation that's passed like months and months and months. And these kids have been in the general population. A lot of these kids haven't been in general population in like 8-9 months. And they'll bring an old situation up and get two offenders going at each other all night long. And they'll sit back and laugh at the situation. So, I mean, it's a constant peer pressure problem over here.
So there's instigators.
Yes, a lot of instigators. And they don't seem to understand that, and I try to make them understand that these offenders out here are not their friends. You're just somebody to pass time with until they leave, and some of them seem to get it, and some of them don't. When the light click on, you'll know because they'll start getting their levels and they'll start trying to get out of here. But a lot of times, the light don't click on until it's too late. So that's what I deal with every day. I mean, it's a job out down here. It's a constant struggle with these offenders because you have to get them on a good day. If you get them on a bad day, this is what we get.
So why do you still do it? What drives you?
I mean, I just love my job. I love doing this. If I help one student, then that's all I need. I love my job. I love being someone I can help somebody. If I help one of these students get out this program and be successful in life, then I did my job.
Okay. So matter of fact, you start getting up, folding up your blankets now. Put them chips down. Mama, I know you hungry. No, they're gonna put everything up. You're gonna put your mats back over there. Put the bunkies back over there. We can do that while you wait for the next person to get dressed. Okay. And then make sure we put in the book everybody 106, 104, 102 refuse their snack. Okay, 102, yeah. 104, 106. Right. We want to put the resident's name. It was Mayfield. Just a minute, ladies. It was 104 is Geyser. And 102 is Campbell. And then we need to make an entry that 4 day room sleepers been moved to hotel. To hotel. Or monitoring. Right. Okay. You just want us to move them? Do you want us to take them off our account or what? To hotel? All right. Okay. All right. Yeah, put all that in the bag because you're gonna take all of that over there with you. Okay. Put your mattresses, Francis. Put your blue bunkie board over here. Stack it up over here. Let's do the blue bunkies first. Let's stack them up first. Then we're gonna do the mattresses on top of the bunkies. Okay. Oh, what is? Oh. I get right in the back of my head and I'm mother. Johnson, want some chips? Yeah. Mayfield, you want some chips? No? Can you put Mayfield refuse the snack? Huh? "104 refused her snack." Campbell, want some chips? 102 refused her snack. Look like one home.
Okay, fathers, another excellent video. We got them today. We have them every week with all my live streams. So as you can see, fathers, this is just a video showing what actually happens in detention centers with females and males, the differences. And what I would much prefer that women be with little girls and men be with little boys. I don't like when you have men supervising girls in a female detention center because of the possibilities of sexual assault and the possibilities of manhandling little girls. I got a huge problem with that. I'm not an advocate of that at all. I don't believe that men should be putting their hands on little girls under any circumstances. It's not acceptable to me, specifically being the father of 4 adult daughters. I have issues with that. And fortunately, when I was in Jefferson County, Colorado, the detention centers where you had the girls' pod and the boys' pod, they were separated by sex, male and female only. So men worked with little boys and women worked with little girls. So that was ideal. And I much prefer that. It's not like that everywhere in the United States, but that's what I prefer because it's safer. And you don't have to worry about your little girls being hurt by grown-ass men. So another excellent video, fathers. This next video I'm going to show you is specifically addressing female offenders in detention centers. It's about a 15-minute video. It's a great video. Hopefully, the video I just showed in the next one, I didn't get permission to use as part of my live stream. So hopefully YouTube will not block them and make me do something different with my live stream, remove them from my live stream. If that does happen, fathers, okay, there's going to be about 25 minutes that'll be taken off my live stream, so it'll be shortened. But there shouldn't be a problem with me using these videos. I'm not doing a reaction to the videos. I'm not a reaction channel. I'm using them for educational, informational, instruction purposes for fathers of daughters. So hopefully, even though I didn't get permission, there shouldn't be a problem with copyright use or copyright abuse. However YouTube is doing it. I can't keep up with YouTube. I really can't. So hopefully they don't get stupid on me and block these 2 videos I'm showing. The first one I just showed and the next one right behind it. It's from the same company that made the videos, okay? All right, fathers, next video. Okay, fathers, next video is girls in detention behind bars interview. Okay, let's get this going.
What kind of things do girls argue about and find to argue about it?
Trying to think. Stupid stuff. Not being quiet. 2 girls are up late at night. The other girls want them to be quiet, so they start yelling back and forth. Somebody they know, somebody's boyfriend that the other girl knows, that's happened before. Or just stupid stuff out in the day room. They'll just start arguing about something, somebody's cards, stuff like that.
You said that Paradise pushes your buttons sometimes, and you can tell me, say, she pushes our buttons by, but how did she do that? How does the kid get to you?
Probably by being the one in all the arguments. She's always involved in some sort of argument with the girls. There's been lots of girls in and out of here, and whenever there usually is a new girl, and she's usually the one to start an argument with it.
So she was pretty candid about a lot of her past. Now, in your job, obviously you got to keep the peace in here. But how does that impact you? Do you learn about their stories? Is that how do you see some of these girls, or how do you see Paradise sort of as an individual compared to the person that has to keep the peace? Does that ever get to you? Or talk about how that strikes you?
A lot of the girls that are in here are either in here for some sort of fighting with other girls, which has increased a lot, or they're here for running away from home. And they're always running away from something. It's never just like happy child running away from a happy home. There's always some sort of story behind there. And they do tell you their stories that are always very sad. It's always very depressing. And you, as a detention officer, you can't let that get to you. Because if you do, you'd be crying every day at work. So, I mean, you have to kind of have a heart and be their counselor, but on the other hand, you just have to kind of be able to not brush it off and not take it home with you, because otherwise you're going to have to go home and just be miserable thinking about all the girls in here and why they're in here and their stories.
Do you turn that off?
I don't know. I just do.
Is there ever an odd case where you're home and you just find yourself thinking about it?
I did casework for 2 years before I came here. So it's not that I've become immune to those feelings, but it's become easier dealing with, their stories and kind of just not ignoring it, but just not being able to take it home with you. It's become easier.
So it seems like, you look at how many different people pass through here, and they all have similar stories. It's like, what would you say from your perspective, and even going back to when you were a caseworker, what's the root of all this? What do you think, if there was one area that you could address, if there was one wound you could find and bandage it, what would it be that would have the greatest effect on, teenage girls in general?
I really wish that there was a center to help out young girls who are runaways, because a lot of these girls, they're here for a reason, and whether that is fighting with other girls or running away from an unhappy home, there is a reason why they're in here, and it's not because they came from, you do get some girls who are in here that made a mistake, like setting off a fire alarm at school or something stupid like that once in a while, but the majority of the cases here are sad, cases, like from either running away from home or rape, or we get a lot of rape cases in here, and we need something just as America to help these young girls out, because they're not getting it. Somewhere along the line, we just forgot, and we go straight from them, being in an unhappy home to them being in jail. Like there's no in between. There's no steps to help them not come back here, because these kids are either going to go back home and it's still going to happen, or they're going to just keep coming back in here and keep being in jail, and eventually they're going to go to adult prison.
Because runaway isn't the problem, it's the symptom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what would you say the greatest challenges of working with juvenile girls in this setting?
Challenge. Probably not getting too close to them. The greatest challenge would probably be not getting too close to them, because some of the girls that come in here, they're funny, you just want to be friends with them because they're so like spunky, they have a personality, and you want to talk to them more, you want to kind of be their little buddy, but you just can't in this job, and I'm one of the younger detention officers. I'm 26, and a lot of the girls, they look at me as more so they want to be friends than an adult, which they should see me at. So I have to be kind of strict with them, because I need to let them know that I'm not, one of their friends. And that's hard because, I don't like to be mean, but sometimes you have to.
So some could say it's almost a thankless job as far as the outside world goes. It's difficult. Faced with these stories, you have to fight off things getting too close. So what keeps you going? What gets you up in the morning? What binds you to this work?
Well, it's certainly not the money. I've always liked working with teens. I have, and that's what keeps me motivated, because these girls, they're here, and we're the only ones. They do talk to each other about things. We encourage them not to, because that does start fights. But they do talk to the other girls, but we are the only ones that they talk to that they can get real advice from. And sometimes it's not the advice that they want to hear, but we're always pretty real with them. So, and they know that we're always here to talk to them. So
we find, Calamari's been doing this for 10 years, and one of the biggest problems is when kids become 18 and they age out of the system and a lot of the services, and it's almost like sink or swim. So what would you say to all the people that might see this, how people should perceive these kids once they're out and fighting to get their life back on track? What's the most important thing people need to know?
Wait, what's the question?
Well, people see these kids in black and white, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's people who might have one of these kids apply for a job at their hardware store and see, oh, you've been in juvenile detention a lot, or I see you checked that you've been arrested before, and they tell their story. And it's really easy for people to look at these kids in black and white and judge them on the surface. But I think that, personally, I feel like it's important to look beneath the surface and realize.
Right.
So I'm curious, these kids need the best shot they can to make it.
Mm-hmm.
If you were addressing the many people that might encounter these kids and might be in that decision to give them a leg up or to just treat them like a petty criminal, what do you say to them?
Well, I think people need to work on their judgmentalness. I don't know if that's a word, but because a lot of these kids that are in here, they are just kids. And something that we also explain to them is that when you are in here, whatever you've done to get in here, it's bad. It's not cool being in jail, but this record is going to be erased. Once you get out of here, if you come back and you're 18, you're going to the big house. That's not a game. That's going to be on your record for the rest of your life. So whatever you did to get in here, don't do it again. It's an easy thing to say, because a lot of these girls are in here for different reasons than the boys. But I mean, as far as the people who are hiring these kids, we've all done stupid things before, and a lot of these girls have just gotten caught. A lot of them are in here for just stupid stuff. And I mean, the majority of them are in here for, runaways. But a lot of them are in here for stupid stuff, getting in fights, pulling fire alarms at school, being on probation for underage drinking, stuff like that.
So any final thoughts, any personal perspective on all this that, what's your... When you're like out for drinks and people learn what you do, and they just like are fascinated by it, like what's the first thing you tell them? What are you most likely to talk about?
I've never met anybody who's fascinated by what I do, but I mean, nobody really knows, and then you can't ever take the time to explain everything that we do here. I mean, nobody really knows. People think that we basically sit and babysit these girls, but there's a lot more underneath the surface. I mean, we are responsible for these girls, like their safety. And that's number one on our list, which is why we have to do checks every 15 minutes. And we just have to constantly be watching, looking out for what they're doing, watching for fights, possible fights, keep girls away from each other who are bickering, just stuff like that. And nobody really knows. Nobody's here. The only people who know what we do is the other detention officers and my supervisor, Jamie. She comes back here quite a few times, so.
What would you consider the biggest challenges when you're out there in your car in dealing with juveniles? Tell us about juveniles.
Well, juveniles, you gotta realize that juveniles are young adults that are becoming adults, and some of them are committing crimes that adult offenders are committing. And we're trying to salvage the juveniles by having a juvenile system, and we're trying to counsel them and try to coach them so they won't become career criminals. If that doesn't happen, then they will become career criminals.
So are most kids that come in, when you're out on the streets and you're apprehending them, are they usually cooperative? Tell me about kind of the psyche of the kids once they see you coming.
Well, usually the uniform speaks for itself. 70% of the juveniles do cooperate. They don't want additional charges. The ones that don't cooperate is the ones that don't want to go to jail. And that 30%, obviously, we have to struggle with them and take them to LCJC. They know the system. They know how to get away from the system. So they want to escape from justice.
One of the nights we filmed that you came in with two brothers, Kenneth Gant and Kentrell Pirtle, and they had been caught vandalizing, I think like 20.
It was 40 vehicles we counted all together. We had several witnesses to come forward, and they've been doing this over a 3 months period. They would go to the Union Station where we have in Gary on 5th, and they'll wait for the trains to go and where there's no one there. So it was a very well organized organization what they had. There was 3 to 4 of them. And of course, they're involved with the vice lords. And why 2 of them ransacked the cars and broke in, 2 are in each street corner watching that the police won't come or any other person. What they failed to understand is their cameras at the station and caught them, doing these vandalism. All we had to do is put the face with the name. And that's what I went house to house to house in the area because I knew it had to be somewhere close by. So we did a field investigation where we had to go from house to house, and finally I found the right house that was where they lived.
So I know you were saying in there, that kid had been living on the streets. How prevalent is that? I mean, you're dealing with kids who come from some, really bad backgrounds. Tell me about, the challenges that you think they also face and why they turn to a life of crime.
You got to understand some of these children live in poverty. They only come from one parenting. They don't have a father in the home. And the mother is overwhelmed a lot of times. Sometimes the mother succumbs to substance abuse. And these kids, that's all they see is poverty. Their parents are not helping out with the situation, and they need to make some money. They got necessities. And this is one of the reasons why they turn to the gangs, because the gangs offer them acceptance, family, love. It's kind of tangible, but it's kind of the fake love. But it's this is what they're looking for. They're looking for their attention. They're looking to be accepted and to be wanted. And that's not what they're having at home.
Anything you would want the public to know about, kind of the job you have, the kids you see, the work you do?
Well, I'd like to thank the community because the community does help officers when they see a crime happen. A lot of times they're afraid, but they do call us anonymously and let us know what's going on. That's what happened on the instance with the two brothers. We had a brave witness that came forward, and he took a picture of them also with his own camera, and he helped us piece the puzzle together. People got to realize that we got to captivate these children and these juveniles at a young age and teach them what's right and wrong, because a lot of them have no cognitive ability. They're just learning from the streets. So we want to teach them what's right and what's wrong. And hopefully we could salvage them, and so they could become better citizens. Some of these people will become doctors, attorneys, if they further their education. And we want to make sure that our offsprings are going to be doing the right things in life.
Some of them can go down that path, and then some of them.
Yes, I've seen a lot of them that go down that path, that go down the right path, notice that they have done something wrong and they want to do something better for society. And some of them will become counselors. I've had a couple of juveniles that have become counselors and got out the gang and removed their tattoos, and they are good role models for other people. And there are those juveniles that do have some mental problems, and a lot of it stems, it's biological. And some of them are diagnosed with bipolarism at an early age, and they are the ones that are not going to be so productive for the society.
Okay, fathers, what are your thoughts? My thoughts are we can never throw away children, period. Every child can change. That's been my experience working with kids in the criminal justice system for 20 years and working with kids in K-12 education for 10 years. 30 years of experience of working with all children from all cultures, from all socioeconomic backgrounds and their families. The county I was in, Jefferson County, Colorado, it was lily white. It was an all-white county, a lot of money. 90 to 95% of the little girls were runaways. So you heard what the detention center employee said. Runaway little girls. That's what I ended up getting on probation, I'm telling you. And fathers, when there's a breakdown at home and your child decides to leave, she's been planning this for a while. And more than likely, she's being harbored by adults, which is crazy, right? But adults are in on this because they feel like they're the protector, because they're going to believe what children tell them without even speaking to the parents, not seeing what's going on in the home. You will harbor a child, but not know what's going on in the home of a child. It's always been interesting to me, right? And every child's got a story. Trust me. When I would get kids on probation, I read their pre-sentence investigation reports. The acronym is PSI. Pre-sentence investigation reports comes from the families. Most of the little girls, like I said, they were in family court. Department of Human Services, AKA Social Services, AKA Child Protection Services, had already been involved at some point prior to them getting on probation. So they had a history with these families before I even got them. So you have two different court systems, family court and juvenile court. And they ended up on juvenile court probation. Then I had to bounce in between family court and juvenile court to give different reports to the judges and the magistrates. It was crazy. Like I said, the county I worked in, a lot of money. Jefferson County, Colorado. Check it out. If you ever want to do the research on it, see what the median income is there. It's very, very high. A lot of money in Jefferson County, Evergreen, Conifer, Bailey, Colorado. A lot of money in the mountains. Golden, Colorado. So, okay, fathers, let's get into this next video.
Dropped against.
Okay, fathers, this next video, this is a real jacked up situation. Okay, it's a little girl, 7th grade girl, that ended up spending 14 days in juvenile detention for an alleged bomb threat that she did not do. So watch this video. This is a really jacked up situation. And then I'll give you my comments after the video.
A story you'll only see on Local 10 News. Charges dropped against a teenager who was arrested for allegedly making a dangerous threat, but it turns out police got this one wrong. Local 10's Rush Lowe spoke with her and is live now with our exclusive tonight. Rush.
Kevin, let me tell you the significance of this story. You remember a couple of months ago, we had a number of teenagers arrested throughout Miami-Dade and Broward counties for these bomb threats. And now we're starting to hear at least one story of a teen where those charges were dropped. And any parent can relate with the anguish of this mom. Take a listen to 13-year-old Nia crying to her mom.
It's tough to be embarrassed in front of your neighbors. It's something that you'll never forget.
On November 19th, Nia was placed into handcuffs outside of her home. She was in tears. She was accused of posting a bomb threat against her school on Instagram.
My mom's friend lives right upstairs. She looked at me and she was like, "What happened?" And I was like, I wanted to hide because it was so embarrassing.
Did you say, "I didn't do this"?
Yes, she did.
I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
I kept telling them. They didn't listen.
Nia was a 7th grader at Renaissance Charter School in Pembroke Pines.
No mom wants to see their child being taken away from them.
Nia spent 14 days in juvenile detention. She kept saying she was innocent. Months passed and mom demanded a thorough investigation.
We found out that it wasn't Nia. The person made multiple emails using Nia's name.
Mom says when police investigated, they found that someone made a fake email with her daughter's name to create that Instagram account. At a court hearing on January 28th, charges were dropped. You can hear it straight from the judge.
Your case has been dropped today. Do you have any questions for me?
No,
All right, good luck. I'm really sorry you went through this.
it's okay.
But this family says the damage was done and this shouldn't happen to anyone else. Before you place a child in handcuffs, mom says, there should be a thorough investigation and a life shouldn't be damaged. And this mom tells me when this incident happened in November, it was widely reported and widely covered. When the charges were dropped, mom says she wanted to get her story out there. Pembroke Pines police did respond to me. They said new information came forward that exonerated the suspect, but mom says it's too late. Her daughter was cuffed, in jail, and traumatized. We're live in Pembroke Pines tonight. I'm Rosh Lowe, Local 10 News.
Okay, fathers, what are your thoughts? Because I'm going to give you mine. That was straight foul. As a former criminal justice professional, 20 years, that story really pissed me off. And I'm going to tell you exactly why it pissed me off. It pissed me off because I'm looking at all these adults that failed this child. I'm looking at all these adults that didn't listen to this child, right? So then she goes through the system. She spends 14 days in detention. God knows what she learned while she was there. God knows what she was exposed to while she was there. God only knows the trauma she experienced while she was there, right? So then at the end, months go by. And then the charges get dropped. And the only thing the judge has to say is, well, we're sorry. No, to hell with that. I have 4 adult daughters. If that was my little girl, I'm suing. I'm suing the school district and I'm going for the state. That is unacceptable. The criminal justice system makes a lot of mistakes when it comes to arresting kids. This cannot happen, right? Because now we have a child that's been traumatized and we don't know how long it's going to take her, right? There was no services offered for this young lady to be transitioned. Let me tell you what should have happened, right? As a former state juvenile probation officer, as a former teacher, as a former dean of students, as a former restorative justice coordinator working in K-12 education, let me tell you what should have happened with this child. If a bomb threat is made and the assessment's done at school on the bomb threat, that child should be removed from school and placed at home until the investigation's done. It's a bomb threat. I understand the seriousness of the bomb threat, but it's a bomb threat, right? So then what should happen is the child's placed at home. They're to remain at home doing their school. Teachers will come up with their work to send it home to the child on a weekly basis until the investigation's done. That's what should have happened. That child should have never been arrested. But this is what happens when you call law enforcement. They arrest kids, right? It wasn't the school resource officer, I don't believe. From the story, I believe it was a law enforcement officer that was called to the school. So they didn't even have a school resource officer. Because if they had a school resource officer, chances are the relationship would have been totally different with that child. But that pissed me off, straight up. Not my daughters. You're not going to be putting handcuffs on my daughters. You're not. That is uncool, and that is unwarranted. It was a bomb threat. I worked in K-12 education. We had bomb threats by kids. And what I just gave you, as far as a solution, that's what adults should have done. How in the hell did all these adults at the school fail this child, man? Unacceptable. I don't give a damn what nobody says. That's some straight up bullshit. That's unacceptable. Putting handcuffs on a child. And then the court, all they can say is, well, we're sorry. No, y'all got to pay now. Y'all got to pay my family and my child economics. I guarantee you, I'm suing the school district and I'm suing the state. Unacceptable. May even sue the Department of Education. That's crazy. Okay, that's my spill. Okay, fathers, next video. Let me add, the only thing I want to add in addition to what I said is that child was in detention, in prison, right? Juvenile prison, falsely accused, right? So they deserve economics. I'm sorry, that's crazy. False imprisonment. Think about that. If your child was falsely imprisoned and no adults left, listen to them. How would you feel, fathers of daughters? How would you feel if your child was falsely imprisoned? You got to think about that. You got to really, really think about that. A sorry's not going to get it. Not for me. Okay, fathers, next video. This video is Kids Behind Bars Prison Camp for Children. So I want your opinion on this, fathers, after you watch it. Okay, fathers, we have one more video. What are your thoughts on that last video? Boot camp for children. So let me give you my opinion. That would never happen to my children. My question is this to all fathers. This is why I need you on board and I need you on deck. I've said in several videos already, we don't get to blame the parent that stayed, the mothers of our children. Whether we're married or divorced, we don't get to blame the mothers for our children ended up in a crisis, for our children end up in a crisis situation. See, men are good for doing that when we bounce. So my question is simple. This is a boot camp. I didn't see one father there. But yet we're allowing other men to manhandle these children. So my question to these fathers is, why? Where are you at, dads? Why are you allowing another man to manhandle your child? How's that happen? Not one father in the room? Not one? But we want to blame the mothers of the children when they fail because they're in a crisis. Come on. Where are the fathers at? We have a fatherless epidemic in the United States of America, regardless of your ethnic group, background, and culture. We have a fatherless epidemic. But yet we want to blame the mothers of our children. Interesting. Very, very interesting. No fathers to be found. So unless their fathers are dead, that's the only excuse they can have for not being there. The fact that it even got to this point, if their fathers aren't in their lives, you don't get to blame it on the mothers. You don't, dads. That's our responsibility. Protection and safety of our children, 100% on us, not on the mothers. 100% on us. But yet, when we fail our children, this is what could happen. And then we fall back and we blame the mothers. I'm not accepting that. You don't get to blame women. I'm not down with it. I'm not accepting it. You don't get to blame women. You don't. When your kid's in a crisis, I worked in the criminal justice system for 25 years. I told you already, I only met a handful of fathers that participated in their daughters' probation to become successful. So in almost 10 years, I met less than 5 dads. And then you want to blame the mothers? Okay. Right. Gotcha. Okay, last video, fathers. It's on the fatherless crisis in the United States and the statistics behind it.
%.
Okay, fathers, last video.
Statistics on fatherless homes. 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes, 5 times the average. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes, 32 times the average. 85% of all children who show behavior disorders come from fatherless homes, 20 times the average. 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes, 14 times the average. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes, 9 times the average. Father factor in education. Fatherless children are twice as likely to drop out of school. Children with fathers who are involved are 40% less likely to repeat a grade in school. Children with fathers who are involved are 70% less likely to drop out of school. Children with fathers who are involved are more likely to get A's in school. Children with fathers who are involved are more likely to enjoy school and engage in extracurricular activities. 75% of all adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers come from fatherless homes, 10 times the average. Father factor in drug and alcohol abuse. Researchers at Columbia University found that children living in two-parent household with a poor relationship with their father are 68% more likely to smoke, drink, or use drugs compared to all teens in two-parent households. Teens in single-mother households are at a 30% higher risk than those in two-parent households. 70% of youths in state-operated institutions come from fatherless homes, 9 times the average. 85% of all youths in prison come from fatherless homes, 20 times the average. Father factor in incarceration. Even after controlling for income, youth in father-absent households still had significantly higher odds of incarceration than those in mother-father families. Youths who never had a father in the household experienced the highest odds. A 2002 Department of Justice survey of 7,000 inmates revealed that 39% of jail inmates lived in mother-only households. Approximately 46% of jail inmates in 2002 had a previously incarcerated family member. 1/5 experienced a father in prison or jail. Father factor in crime. A study of 109 juvenile offenders indicated that family structure significantly predicts delinquency. Adolescents, particularly boys in single-parent families, were at higher risk of status property, and person delinquencies. Moreover, students attending schools with a high proportion of children of single parents are also at risk. A study of 13,986 women in prison showed that more than half grew up without their father, 42% grew up in a single mother household, and 16% lived with neither parent. Father factor in child abuse. Compared to living with both parents, living in a single-parent home doubles the risk that a child will suffer physical, emotional, or educational neglect. The overall rate of child abuse and neglect in single-parent households is 27.3 children per 1,000, whereas the rate of overall maltreatment in two-parent households is 15.5 per 1,000. Daughters of single parents without a father involved are 53% more likely to marry as teenagers, 711% more likely to have children as teenagers, 164% more likely to have a premarital birth, and 92% more likely to get divorced themselves. Adolescent girls raised in a two-parent home with involved fathers are significantly less likely to be sexually active than girls raised without involved fathers. 43% of U.S. children live without their father. 90% of homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists motivated with displaced anger come from fatherless homes. 71% of pregnant teenagers lack a father. 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. 85% of children who exhibit behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes. 90% of adolescent repeat arsonists live with only their mother. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers come from fatherless homes. 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions have no father. 85% of youth in prisons grew up in a fatherless home. Fatherless boys and girls are twice as likely to drop out of high school, twice as likely to end up in jail, 4 times more likely to need help for emotional or behavioral problems. These are very sad statistics, and family law reform is needed, and needed now. Census fatherhood statistics. 64.3 million estimated number of fathers across the nation. 26.5 million number of fathers who are part of married couple families with their own children under the age of 18. Among these fathers, 22% are raising 3 or more of their own children under 18 years old. Among married couple family households only, 2% live in the home of a relative or a non-relative. 2.5 million number of single fathers, up from 400,000 in 1970. Currently, among single parents living with their children, 18% are men. Among these fathers, 8% are raising 3 or more of their own children under 18 years old. 42% are divorced, 38% have never married, 16% are separated, and 4% are widowed. The percentages of those divorced and never married are not significantly different from one another. 16% live in the home of a relative or non-relative. 27% have an annual family income of $50,000 or more. 85% among the 30.2 million fathers living with children younger than 18, the percentage who lived with their biological children only. 11% lived with stepchildren. 4% with adopted children. Less than 1% with foster children. Recent policies encourage the development of programs designed to improve the economic status of low-income non-resident fathers and the financial and emotional support provided to their children. This brief provides 10 key lessons from several important early responsible fatherhood initiatives that were developed and implemented during the 1990s and early 2000s. Formal evaluations of these earlier fatherhood efforts have been completed, making this an opportune time to step back and assess what has been learned and how to build on the early program's successes and challenges. While the following statistics are formidable, the responsible fatherhood research literature generally supports the claim that a loving and nurturing father improves outcomes for children, families, and communities. Children with involved, loving fathers are significantly more likely to do well in school, have healthy self-esteem, exhibit empathy and pro-social behavior, and avoid high-risk behaviors such as drug use, truancy, and criminal activity compared to children who have uninvolved fathers. Studies on parent-child relationships and child well-being show that father love is an important factor in predicting the social, emotional, and cognitive development and functioning of children and young adults. 24 million children, 34%, live absent their biological father. Nearly 20 million children, 27%, live in single-parent homes. 43% of first marriages dissolve within 15 years. About 60% of divorcing couples have children, and approximately 1 million children each year experience the divorce of their parents. Fathers who live with their children are more likely to have a close, enduring relationship with their children than those who do not. Compared to children born within marriage, children born to cohabiting parents are 3 times as likely to experience father absence, and children born to unmarried, non-cohabiting parents are 4 times as likely to live in a father-absent home. About 40% of children in father-absent homes have not seen their father at all during the past year. 26% of absent fathers live in a different state than their children, and 50% of children living absent their father have never set foot in their father's home. Children who live absent their biological fathers are, on average, at least 2 to 3 times more likely to be poor, to use drugs, to experience educational, health, emotional, and behavioral problems, to be victims of child abuse, and to engage in criminal behavior than their peers who live with their married, biological, or adoptive parents. From 1995 to 2000, the proportion of children living in single-parent homes slightly declined, while the proportion of children living with 2 married parents remained stable.
Okay, fathers. I need all fathers on board and on deck, regardless of your background, your ethnic group, and your culture. Because the fatherless epidemic in the United States is real. And we don't get to blame the mothers, whether we're married to them or not. This is what happened to our children when the fathers are not a part of their life, period. Those are the statistics. Fight them if you must. But that's what it is. All right, fathers, another live stream. I want to thank you for being present and being available. I have another live stream coming up next Sunday, 10:30 Mountain Standard Time in Colorado. MST, Mountain Standard Time. All right, fathers. So, praying for you, praying for your families, praying for your kids, hoping you have a great week as our children get ready to get out of school for the summer. Enjoy your babies this summer. Enjoy them while they're little, because one day they're going to be adults like mine. All right, dads. This is F from B. Martin. You know the routine. I'm out. Till next week. Peace.